Welcome back to the Knickknack Review. I'm your host, Clint the Knickknack, and today we're looking at Loki Episode 1. Let's get started. So in the first episode of Loki, it literally picks off right after where Avengers Endgame ended. It's where Loki disappears after he's in the confines of the Avengers, and before he's handed off to Shield and everything, and he grabs a Tesseract and he disappears. This is where you finally get to see where did he go, because I myself was wondering, like, well, why would they do that if they didn't have some kind of plan afterwards? And here we go. We have a Loki series. And I must say, coming up with a series solely revolved around Loki and what he did right after Endgame, it's got to be, it's a pretty clever idea, and it definitely gives me a lot of questions right off the back, like, well, where did he go? Why did he do what he do? And just why would you make a series in general around Loki? Yes, he's a great character, but why keep him around unless there's a really good reason? And it seems like in this first episode, there is. It starts off with Loki after he disappears from the Avengers hold. He disappears, or reappears rather, into this desert, and immediately is confronted by some strangers, and he's just, given his whole spiel. I am Loki from Asgard. I'm burdened with glorious purpose and everything. And all of a sudden, a little portal comes out, and here comes the TVA agents, and they greet him really quickly, and he's just like, whoa, wait, who are you? And they pretty much show him who's boss right away, and he's taken into custody and threw a very nice slow-mo punch in the face. I kind of like that touch. Once they capture Loki, he is brought to the TVA headquarters, and you get a brief animated history of the TVA, how it's created by the Timekeepers, and it's not, I want to say it's kind of, it seems fake. Like they're not telling you everything, and it just, there's a lot of, it brings more questions to it, and it's just kind of like, I don't know about that. That seems very suspicious. It's just the way it's created and presented. And Miss Minutes over there doing her whole spiel, I thought that was a nice little touch, and I think there's more to her than meets the eye, but it definitely brings more questions. And Loki, it's weird to see him completely powerless. We've seen him get beat by Thor, the Avengers in general, but to see him completely powerless, like he couldn't do anything. It was actually a nice touch, but it was very weird to see, because it's not that Loki is like uber powerful, but he's always scheming. He's always finding a way out. And later in this episode, you kind of see that come out in Loki. Like, oh wait, that's the Loki we know and love right there. Because it's like, yes, you're all powerful. And he comes to this realization, like, is this the greatest power in the universe? And it was really like, it was a nice little, like, a reality check for him, because he's like, whoa, he got humbled for a second, but then you get to see him kind of embrace the Loki we all know. Then we get introduced to Owen Wilson's character, Mobius. And, I mean, come on, if you like Owen Wilson, if you're a fan of his, you're going to love this character that he plays, because it's literally just Owen Wilson being Owen Wilson as another character. And, I mean, you either love him or hate him. I'm a big fan of his. I have been for a long time. And he's just he's a nice presence on screen. He does really well with Tom Hiddleston. I think they really have a good chemistry going on, because every time Loki is Loki, I mean, Owen Wilson's character Mobius comes right back at him with something else, and you're like, whoa, like he can actually keep up with Loki like that. And you're so used to seeing Loki kind of like have the upper hand, and that's not the case here. And eventually Loki breaks out and gets free and starts time jumping everywhere within the TVA, but he basically shows them, hey, you can't contain me. Not completely. I mean, they do a really good job. But there's this one scene in the show that okay, so Mobius is showing him a whole display of what he's already gone through. He's like, why are you showing me this? Well, then you see the future, what we have seen, but not this Loki. And I thought that was a nice touch, because he gets to see his own future, potential future at that. And he gets to see him die. He gets to see his mother die, his father die, his brothers presumably die. He doesn't even know about that part. So it was a really, really nice, humbling moment for him, because while he didn't necessarily take off the veil and be like, okay, I'm a good guy now, I've changed my ways, it was just a moment of clarity for him. Like, it opened his eyes. You saw him get emotional. And, I've heard people even crying over this scene. I didn't, but it was a very good moment. And you got to see a different side of Loki that was like, whoa, holy crap. Where did that come from? That it was not only relatable, but it was just nice to see. Now, the whole reason you learn about Mobius, and like keeping keeping Loki around because normally they would just reset the timeline and that's it. But you find out later that there is a variant Loki that is killing Minutemen, which these are the TVA agents, all around time. And they're like, okay, well, it's almost kind of like fighting fire with fire. In order to capture a Loki or to get a Loki, we're going to need a Loki. And they find a Loki. And so Mobius actually says, whoa, 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 before you reset time, before you do anything else, let me take him. I know you don't believe in me, but I need him for this purpose. And it was a really cool scene because I was like, why would they keep him around, number one? And why would Loki even agree? And there's this one interesting scene where Loki actually, after he escaped, he was walking around different places and he comes across this guy that is pushing a cart, and he opens a drawer and he's got a bunch of Infinity Stones in there. And you learn that none of the Infinity Stones, including the Tesseract, none of them work. None of them work in the TVA. And in that place and time, they're actually outside of time. And in the comic books, the Infinity Stones actually did not work, or rather the Infinity Gems, which they were called in the comic books, they did not work outside of their own reality, outside their own universe. They appeared in the DC universe one time and they didn't work in there. That was a whole nother story, but I thought that was really neat. And Loki looks at it, and that's when he has that realization, like, wow, this is like the greatest power in the universe. Like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. Now, eventually in the episode, Loki doesn't necessarily agree to help them, but I think Mobius kind of like channels a certain part of him, like, okay, look, I'm going to help you find this Loki, because I think he's more interested and intrigued rather than wanting to really help. And at the end of the episode, you kind of see like this variant killing a few people, and you don't really see who it is, but you kind of get a gist of it. And it's this episode actually opened up, answered maybe one or two questions, mainly from Endgame, but brought a whole new table worth of questions and more questions. And it's like, okay, what is this show, and like, how's it going to deal with all this stuff? Because it does actually mention Endgame as far as how they time jumped and how it was okay for them to do that, but what Loki did was not. It was not part of the plan, if you will, not part of time. The natural flow of time, everything the Avengers did, that was supposed to happen. Loki disappearing in Endgame towards the end or whatever, that was not supposed to happen. So I thought that was interesting, and it's like, Loki's trying to wrap his head around that concept too. And so it's kind of like you're right on the long ride with him and trying to figure out how all this works and what's going on, and like, where have y'all been this entire time? Where was the TVA when this happened, when this happened, when this happened? Kind of like with the Eternals. The Eternals said like, oh, we've been away or not interfering until now. Well, kind of like the TVA. Where have y'all been? So there's a lot of jokes and memes going around like, oh, this little thing happened, TVA shows up. That thing, and it just brings up more questions, but I gotta say, it's really intriguing, and I think for the first episode, it was really good. Well, that about does it for this episode, guys. This brief first introduction of the Loki TV series, it was a really good episode. I enjoyed it. Not a whole lot to talk about. It just brought upon a lot more questions than answers. But I am looking forward to where they go with it. And I have a feeling this is going to be their way of introducing the multiverse through different alternate timelines. Instead of alternate realities and alternate universes, it's alternate timelines, which kind of does the same thing. It kind of presents the same concept without it trying to be really confusing. Although I'm very interested in the multiverse and everything, and I love that concept, I think it's easy to explain, but with this, I feel that this show is a good way to introduce it slowly. So when something like Spider-Man comes out and Doctor Strange, you have those movies that's supposed to be dealing with the multiverse, especially Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. You'll kind of have a taste of the multiverse through this show, and it's already confirmed to have 3 seasons, so get ready to see a lot more Loki in the future. All right, guys, well, this is it for me. Let me know what you thought about this episode, the season premiere of Loki. I'd love to hear what y'all thought, all your theories and thoughts. And while you're there, don't forget to, well, you know what to do. As always, I am Clint the Knickknack, and I will see you on the next one.